Good
Hey, Jen.
morning.
Morning.
Give folks a minute or two to get joined up here.
Cool.
Give folks just one more minute. So if you've got the meeting minutes open, you'll see that today's agenda is a little bit different format, and it'll look familiar for folks who'd been around on the prior cycle, but probably new, or a prior cycle, probably new for folks who hadn't. So at the end of the cycle, we go into a little bit more rigorous burn down format in the notes where we're tracking a set of specific things much more closely. Unfortunately, I'm missing some information here, so we'll go through what we have. And I don't see, yeah, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. As always, this is a recorded meeting. It will be posted to YouTube for posterity shortly, and be awesome as you always are. And so yesterday, code freeze started, and hopefully we see things dial down. I've already been getting pings on Slack like, hey, could I get this in? Is it okay? So people are at least acknowledging. It was interesting to see on Monday that we had somebody say, oh, hey, I have a feature that I need to add. What's the exception process? It's sort of a mixed bag. Yesterday we published the beta 1. We had a few issues with that, and that we were trying to make some late changes around how the container building happens, and we ended up backing those out because we weren't successful. And you might see right now, actually, there's discussion going on in SIG release around what we might do to move forward. But this is part of breaking the build and release cycle out from underneath Google and figuring out how we as a community run it. So I would expect that there will be some hiccups there over time, and we will work through them and hopefully do that in a way that's as minimally destructive or as possible. Do some fail fast, fix fast. That's what we tried yesterday, and we failed hard and stopped, reverted. That's how it goes. We tried, and we will continue trying once it's safer after the release is out. Okay, so CI signal report. We, again, do not have Mohammed here, and I want to put a call out. So we're struggling here. We need help on the CI signal side. So I'll be looking to see if I can get a volunteer and be pinging some people individually to pick up the slack here. We're not getting issues open promptly. We're not getting them assigned to people. We're not getting follow-up. So basically the fundamentals of that role and the risk management that happens there have not been happening. I would have liked to have gone through the specific set of issues, but we've honestly only had one issue opened up in the last 8 days, even though there have been multiple failures. And a few of those maybe are in a bucket that's Google related, and we have somebody who's been doing some debug there, a couple people, and maybe have progress. I don't see a whole lot of benefit of belaboring the status, because that's kind of what the status is. We have a bunch of issues. We have a couple people looking and are waiting for more status. And then we have other issues that need open. So if any of you happen to know somebody who might be suited to the CI signal triage role, let me know. Otherwise, like I said, I'm going to be reaching out to people. So then I guess we'll shift over to issues and Gwen, so non-CI signal.
Hi. Sorry, I was late. I lost track of time, and I'm
You're right on
shifting over
time.
to my notes. Here we are. Okay, so we still don't see a whole lot of issues. There were a couple ones that were open and closed pretty furiously again, and everyone was really responsive about me pinging them for making issues critical urgent, and most of them have been moved over. There is one issue that hasn't been removed from the milestone. I talked to them and they said, actually, we are not getting this in for 112 and it's fine. I pinged you on that, Tim, because I don't have milestone privileges. And neither did the author of the PR, and there's so much discussion, and I think it's just going to get lost unless we just remove the milestone on that. And then there is one issue where I escalated it, but I made people aware triage is happening. Then overall, there's a couple of open pull requests that I pinged on saying, hey guys, you need to make this critical urgent, otherwise it's going to get stuck in CI. But that's kind of a self-correcting problem. Eventually they'll see that. But yeah, so I think I'm relatively on top of that. And if you need help with creating issues or I'm getting really good at bothering people, and I think people are getting to see my face a lot. So, so I can probably bother people about CI stuff. Maybe I should connect with Aisha on that.
Yeah, I'll get a meeting out for both of us. And then Tim, if you could give us a list of issues that you want us to look at, we can split between us and take some action items. I anyway wanted to meet with Gwen to understand a little bit more about triage now that 113 will soon be there. So I'll put something on our calendars, Gwen.
Awesome.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so that brings us then to a window that got lost. There we are.
Do you mind if we go back to CI signal for just
Yeah.
a second? So, because I wanted to maybe call out that perhaps instead of the status being yellow, it should be red if you're at the point where you're asking for volunteers. I also wanted to point out, at least from like my perspective as an outside observer, it looks like every single one of your dashboards are red for whether or not a release should go out. So release master blocking, release master upgrade, and release 112 blocking are all red in some way, shape, or form. What are we doing to mitigate this? One thing I'm sure my employer wouldn't enjoy me suggesting is that, gee, it looks like a lot of your red is coming from GKE related jobs. And if they're not being appropriately incentivized to actually make those go green, perhaps we should incentivize them by kicking those jobs out because they're not actually providing reliable signal.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the options. And I think that this week that option needs to play out. I feel some of this is on us because we haven't promptly and clearly created issues and put an owner on them. So as much as, yes, there is a GKE angle there, over the last couple days I've seen better response, so I want to give it just a little while yet. But yeah, I think exactly what you're saying, that these either are going to fall out or will get the attention. But I think that is the stick or the carrot, whichever way you look at it, that these are going to be taken out. I was roughly there last week, and they started to look better for a moment, and then they got really worse over the weekend. So that that's putting a nail in it for me that we're out of time on those pretty much here.
All right, I will follow up with you offline about documenting criteria in some way, shape, or form, because you're not really going to have a document to be able to point to, but we can talk about tribally what we've done in the past. And I think you should shout this loudly during the community meeting, and you should give a heads up within KDev, and you should give folks an appropriate amount of time to react to see if that causes adjustment.
On that note, I was actually thinking that I saw a lot of up tests failing recently. Multiple ups have been failing on the 112 release blocking. So I think that at least 4 or 5 ups have failed.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to, despite working for Google, I actually don't know a ton about how we're troubleshooting these things internally. I know that what caused the initial sea of red to go away was switching from like one region to another region or one zone to another zone because of capacity issues. And it could very well be that what's happening now is a completely unrelated issue. I honestly just don't know.
Yeah, it's
different,
very opaque.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at that, looks like there are mostly there are two to three buckets. One is like all the costs jobs. There are mostly GKE, but then there is one GCE cost that's also like failing in the 112 blocking. And then there's the cube admin stuff, which I don't know if there's already some active work going on there, or we should still.
Yeah, there is actually, but there have been multiple attempts, and it actually got green for a while, and then again it started failing. So this is getting a little bit weird for me.
Yeah.
I have to go back again, keep pinging them.
Okay, and then the third bucket I see is the scale tests.
Yeah.
I feel. Well, go ahead, Aaron.
Just to bring my historical context for some perspective, the job failing on release master blocking that concerns me is the GCI GCE serial job. Yeah. If I put on my GKE blinders and assume, why are we blocking on a hosted solution? And then I assume, well, kubeadm and scale have always historically been failing. The serial job failing is new and not usual for this stage of the game. Of course, as I look at the job's history, it's been failing for one reason or another for quite some time now. So maybe it's too flaky to trust to have reliable signal. But that one ought not to be failing the way that it is.
Yeah, you're right, Aaron. That one, I mean, it never used to like flake like this earlier. So
right.
We should look into that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tim, if you could just anywhere where you could just point us to like a spreadsheet where we can like all of us can take a few areas, or how you want to do, more than happy.
Yeah. I will set up a little bit of organization around that today. I feel like we have symptoms of some scheduling issues that have attention as well, and between that and the capacity issues, that could explain a lot of what we're seeing, but I would have liked to have seen that.
This is guesswork without a clear owner who's providing transparency and visibility, plain and simple. That's the problem.
If those were the key issues, I think they would have sorted themselves out a little faster. So yeah. Anything else anyone wants to talk about there? All right, so for Friday's meeting, we should have a short list of critical failures, open issues, and owners and plan, and I will have discussed tomorrow in the community meeting the plan to remove GKE specifically, and we'll see where that stuff goes. And thank you, Anonymous Quagga, who is writing notes.
Just one more thing. Someone from the GKE Release Shepherd team reached out to me yesterday, specifically around which tests they should be looking at if we are not going to be blocking on those. So I'll make sure to invite her to the Friday meeting.
Okay.
So we have some ownership there.
That'll be good.
In terms of issues in general, this is the time we should be seeing like daily work on it, right?
Yes.
What are my tools if I don't see that? Because I've seen a couple of, oh yeah, I'll work on it, and and the way developers think, it's like, I have tons of time. It's like the beginning of September. It's like, yeah.
So I think there's first, if you've got an individual, ping them on Slack, try to get a response, raise them there.
Yeah.
GitHub usually is more lossy, but you can also put out a little bit broader net, both in the Slack, the appropriate SIG Slack channel. Say, hey, SIG leads X, Y, and Z by name. I've not gotten progress on issue X with person Y. Like a lot of direct @ mentions. You can also do that in the GitHub with the one of the teams. And then if you're not poke myself and Aish, and we will start getting in touch with individuals more urgently as well. But it
That's the
basically
one. Yeah.
it basically becomes Slack, GitHub, email, direct, trying to find somebody who's in a cubicle next to them, even whatever it takes.
I'm just so excited. I'm officially allowed to nag people. It's fantastic.
That we are into that position. And yeah, I feel like whether it was summer or Burning Man or conferences or whatever the heck it was, like this month things have been very high latency, and people said yes on it and then silence for too long.
Yep. It's actually quite hard to catch people. I've had to escalate to leads on multiple issues myself, so that's a little bit of a thing.
And that's where, I mean, as a team, if we have a short list and we all know, and that's part of what this meeting's about, like how Gwen has listed specific issues, we can notate next to them, like, I need this person's attention. And each of us, then any of us could say, okay, I will take that one for the day and I will work on hunting down this particular person. It really takes that one-on-one connection on a specific issue to do it. So I'm going to move on to features. Did Steven? Yes, Steven's here. Hey.
Hey, so we are currently at 63 features. There are 60 features. That seems to be on track. That seems wild to me. This seems crazy. I need to mark it and have it recorded that this seems crazy at this point in the game. There are 3 that require exceptions. One is around CRI. I'll put links in the chat as well. One is around CRI that was closed that I don't think should have been closed, but it looks like it was around logging and stats, so maybe incremental improvements. The second one was around release architecture. So this is something that we need to bring to SIG release, and we haven't had a SIG release meeting in maybe 3 weeks now. So the one next week is the one that we need to bring this to. So essentially, this is a task that was owned by Cluster Lifecycle, but it shouldn't be owned by Cluster Lifecycle. They believe SIG release should hold it, and I think that's true too. So we just need to have a meeting about it and have an actual owner for the task. The last one was quota by priority. Quota by priority was a subtask essentially of a different feature. So there are so it's been filed and there's activity happening on the other feature, but I'm trying to wrangle people to actually put it where it needs to be. Outside of that, they don't actually seem at risk. Just that exceptions should be filed for these special cases. I'm doing a sweep of the features right now just to see if anything has kind of bubbled up to the surface. Have you, Zach? I don't know if Zach is on this call actually.
I am.
Cool, awesome. Have you, with regards to docs, have docs kicked out any features recently? I haven't seen anything specifically. But
We have not kicked out features. I'm actually a little bit nervous to flex that muscle, because while it may be fun, I don't want to just be the negative Nancy that's like, well, you didn't have a PR, therefore banished.
I can be the bad guy at this point.
And I will do that as well. And I was waiting for Steven kind of to finish there. Those 3 potentially at-risk, exception required, like we are so past the point of exception that these folks need told that this is not going in the release. And they can respond.
I'm happy to say mean stuff to people in a loving way. Just, I guess I didn't really know when I said like officially, because yesterday was Doc's deadline. I don't want to be like immediately everything that's not in is gone with just like an iron fist. I was gonna ask, like, generally when should we start saying no?
A couple weeks ago and definitely now. We're in the final 2 weeks of the release, really. I mean, we have 3 weeks until the release date, but 2 weeks until master reopens. I mean, if they're if their stuff is still questionable or underway, it's going to be landing in the 113 branch. And if they're seriously proposing at this point that it should be cherry picked back to the release branch, no, you've missed this train. And especially, like, I would be a little more willing to consider things if we had a clean CI signal and they had their code on a branch and had testing happening on it and can say, look, this is not going to destabilize things. But we already have enough instability that we do not have the luxury of taking on extra risk at this point. If you don't have your code in, you haven't filed your exception to describe it, you haven't filed your docs PR, you've missed.
Tim, you are my hero.
This is just, I mean, and this isn't like being mean or anything. This is just pragmatic. Like, we are out of time and we have a scary amount to do to figure out if and how we can stabilize CI signals so that, because really what we're realistically looking at this point increasingly, I would say, as of this week, and the increase in CI failures this weekend, is that this release is late. And if this is release is late, 113 has issues because it's already a short cycle with all of the holidays and things. So this has serious consequences to the cadence of the project over the coming months from now and into 2019. So we really have to tighten down.
So how are you going to do it? Are you going to go to the PRs and issues and kick them out of the milestone?
Yes.
We cut the release right now.
So when Gwen mentioned that she didn't have milestone maintainer access, I was surprised, and I started, since people were talking and typing notes, I started going off to grant access. But we will start exercising that, and it's simple. We remove the milestone label with a notation of why. Time has gone by, and if they're really serious and have proof and evidence, they can come back and bring it. But practically speaking, how this happens from every past cycle I've been involved on, people say, yes, okay, we get it, you're right.
Can I just say...
And they can always cherry pick back, right?
If they can justify it.
Yeah. Can you throw an email to the Kubernetes dev with the whole list of things that are going to get kicked out as well? So, there's higher visibility. So everybody knows that we are going to do this, and whether they agree to it or not.
Yeah, we can collate that list first and give them one more layer of announcement. Honestly, I don't expect that to change much of anything because a good portion of the people aren't reading notices like that anyway. When their particular thing does not merge, they ask why.
Yeah, and it's also because we don't send those notices, so they don't know they don't know that they can expect one, right?
We've regularly announced what the release cadence is, and it's not really different than prior releases. Like it's not like this is lore that we have a feature freeze, a code slash, a code freeze. These things are known, and they've been reminded basically every other week.
Now, in previous releases, we didn't send out a list saying, okay, we're going to kick these out. That's what I was talking about.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next on the list is PRs. As we're transitioning from slush to freeze, it becomes a little more important to monitor PRs themselves. And this used to fall under issue triage and is sort of now kind of a team collaborative issue, but also Gwen has volunteered to take point on it a bit, watching what's going by. There's a worry in that, and this has been articulated particularly in SIG PM, but since we don't have a formal like kept to issue to PR tight coupling on feature things, all of these people that we'd be talking about right now potentially dropping their things, there's nothing to stop them from advocating to their SIG leadership to say, yes, add the milestone back onto this thing. And because things automatically merge and things just flow in. So as a release team, we need to watch the PRs going by day to day now to make sure that we don't have excess and unknown things being merged by well-intended people that continue to complicate our task of settling down CI and getting a quality release out.
So I think it's sorry, Tim, SIG PM guy here. I think it's beyond that. We also don't have a way of enforcing any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We can say we're removing it from the milestone. We can say we're doing stuff, but like until we have a way of enforcing this, people can slip stuff by if they feel like.
Yep. So there, especially because we need to settle down the CI, we need to know that the code is stable, and the only way we do that is for us to actually watch and notice that, and then complain that people are not following the standard.
So a note for everyone: we are actively, Jason and I are kicking around some ideas on SIGPM, and I know that maybe some of you have seen the two proposals that we're doing. Both of those proposals will probably not happen. We're going with something entirely different, which is to fix the KEP process first, and then start moving, possibly moving the design proposals and KEPs over from K community over to K features, renaming K features to K KEPs, and starting to resolve some of that tech debt. The plan is still kind of cloudy, so we're planning on discussing that in SIG architecture as well as SIG PM. We will keep everyone posted.
So that indirectly reminds me, we do have a retrospective document open, and at the point that we are done with the release, we'll go through a retrospective. It's useful to drop things in as we go, and especially during the kind of panic of the current 2 weeks, it's easy to lose track of things. So day to day, if you notice something particularly annoying, please drop those in the retro doc. And then
who has edit rights or comment rights to the retro doc? Because I do not right now.
You do not? Huh.
Oh, it's weird.
Good question. Try again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for noting that. Also related to that, I have been putting out a kind of the shout out. So if nothing else, hopefully we will, not hopefully, we will get a quality release out here. But one of the things that I take a little bit of pride in, at least for this release, is that we've done a whole bunch of documentation on the process. There's a lot more to do, but as you think about what you've done in your role this cycle, please give another read through to the role handbooks that we have gotten updated significantly this quarter, but also and go through and see if retrospectively if there's anything else you'd like to additionally change there to hand off to the next folks in front of us.
Yeah, big shout out to Tim, Stephen, Jace, Josh, Aaron, all of you guys for like updating all the playbooks. It was awesome.
All right, so this meeting's supposed to only be a half hour, and I have a conflict to go to. So quickly, docs we've kind of touched on. Zach, anything else you want to mention there?
I just spoke with Jim and Tim Fogarty, who are assisting me in the release, and we are in the active badgering process, but basically we're going to start denying people entry to this release based on missing, not even a placeholder PR for documentation.
Okay, if you could send me that link, then that list, then I'll collate the set of those things. And similarly, Stephen, you give me your couple, and Gwen, if there's any that you are worried about that you've seen as well. So that if everybody hands me that sort of stuff, I will scrub through and communicate it later today and tomorrow again in the community meeting.
Sounds good.
Will do. Thank you.
Release notes. Nick, anything you want to mention briefly?
Nothing new. We're meeting today, and then we'll start publicizing the document. But otherwise, everything's going well.
Okay. And communications, Caitlin, I have seen an email from you about the blog post this week.
Yep, we are right on schedule. The blog post is now in review. So Tim, Aish, Stephen, if you could go into that doc and review by September 11th, as well as input your comments for the media messaging doc. Both of those should be in your email. And then the link to the blog post is in the notes from today if anybody else wants to take a look and review.
Okay. And then obviously, as we sort out this list of things that we're intending to kick out, we'll let you know, but then obviously I would want you to take that with a grain of salt, because some portion of these will come back and say, no, we are ready, we must get in and justify it, but then others will acknowledge that they're not. So as that settles out, we'll let you know concretely which are which.
Awesome. I'll be on the lookout for that. And then, we have a great backlog of features with as many as we have in this release, so we're in good shape either way.
Okay. All right, that is the set of things, and I need to move on to another meeting, but does anybody else have things that they would like to briefly mention?
Okay, quick question, really quick question. Are we saying that we're kicking them out right now? Or are we saying that like last call? We're saying
We
we're
are
kicking them out right now.
We are kicking them out, and I will, because there is in addition to the CI signal thing, to give a timeline, and I'll re-announce it tomorrow at the community meeting, but I'll say these are departing on Friday.
Cool, got it.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, and we will do this again on Friday.
Later.
Yay.
Bye.